Hello, friends. Welcome to Experience Data Talk, a show featuring data science leaders and technologists from around the world. This is episode number 107. Today, we get a chance to learn from Gary Saarenvirta. Gary is the founder and CEO of DaisyIntel. And in today's show, he talks with us about his academic journey, his transition into industry, what it was like launching a data science company, and ways he is helping organizations boost revenue and solve business challenges with artificial intelligence. Here's our interview with him. Gary, thank you so much for joining our Data Talk podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting.
So, Gary, can you share a little bit about your background? I thought it was interesting reading your LinkedIn bio that you got your bachelor's and master's degrees in aerospace engineering. So you're literally a rocket scientist.
Yeah, I did my degrees at University of Toronto in aerospace engineering and my master's degrees in computational fluid dynamics. So I went to engineering science at University of Toronto, which is kind of like a flagship engineering program, which is kind of a double density undergrad, very focused on pure math, pure science. So I would say I'm a very strong physics engineering background. So. And that really shapes my view of the world, and I think has really impacted my viewpoints on what AI is and what AI isn't. And
what were your plans after college?
Yeah, when I was doing my master's, I thought I was going to become a professor and stay in academia, and that was my plan as I was going through undergrad and grad school. But then, having spent time at doing my master's and grad school, I went to the University of Toronto Institute for Aerospace Studies, and just the pace of academia was just way too slow. And I found it academics being involved in very esoteric problems that had less practical impact. That wasn't a filter in academia, which makes sense. I'm not against that. Academia certainly plays a significant role in advancing knowledge. But for me personally, I just found the pace too slow, and I wanted to do more. I was more energetic and ambitious. So I think I left there and went into some friends of mine started a software company with some of my undergrad buddies. And so I kind of started learning about IT after grad school, and Canada didn't have much of an aerospace industry to speak of. There's a few companies that do that, and I wasn't ready to leave Canada, so I thought that I would stepped into this technology world and business at that time, and really backed into an accidental career.
What was that transition like leaving academia and then going to go work with your partner?
Yeah, I thought, when I left, we started doing kind of just software development, object-oriented software development as my first gig with my buddies. And it was, for me, I was like, as an engineering teach people a problem-solving mindset. So I just view the world as one big problem. And so, I remember the first day we set up an office in my friend's house, and my job was to set up a network with BNC cables, those old thick cables with these big connectors. And I go, what's a network? Okay, well, let's figure that. We're using Novell at the time, Novell Networks, and knew nothing about it. And we, just figured it out. And it was just a big, glorious continuation of education, just learning new stuff, and saw this new side of the world, other than living in aerospace and aircraft and jets and spaceships and re-entry and all this kind of stuff. And I was just learning about a whole new side of the world, and it was fun. I'm a lifelong learner, so for me it kind of was really exciting and an easy transition.
That's so cool. Oh, I love how curious you are and how excited you were about just continuing to learn. Was it hard to leave aerospace behind and the physics and the math that you had learned in school, and then kind of okay, I'm moving on to do something else?
Oh, well, I left it for a short time, just as I learned in software development, because after I moved on from this, I've used everything I've ever learned in school every day at work. And so I've been really lucky to be self-determined. And so I've been able to maximize the value of my education. And so I love the aerospace stuff, and I still read for fun, like for brain food. I've been reading about turbulence. It's the last unsolved classical physics problem is a theory of turbulence. I don't know if you heard of the joke. I think I was at the pearly gates. St. Peter asked Heisenberg, or Einstein, do you want to know the solution of quantum mechanics or fluid mechanics? He goes, well, I'm more likely to get an answer to the first one. Something like that. The joke goes, right? So I thought my dream was, maybe I can solve this last unsolved classical mechanics problem. So that's been kind of a 25-year hobby, staying kind of abreast of when I have time to contribute, because it still interests me, fascinates me, the I mean, I went into aerospace because my dad loved planes as a kid growing up. I had all these plane books around the house. And so I went into the field saying there was choices in universities. I said, oh, this school has an aerospace engineering program. I love planes and rockets. Cool. you know.
Did would you say your parents like helped you like be really curious and kind of encourage you in that?
I mean, I was born in Finland and my parents were immigrants and, they're hardworking. My dad is a mechanic. My mom was a hairdresser and they ran their own businesses. And so I think, I think I kind of was just born with some God-given smarts that, my parents were smart, but they didn't pursue education, and they always pushed me. I always was top of the class all the way through public school and through high school. And, this engineering science program that I got to was really elite, but I had no idea like back, today to get into the program, you need like a 95% average out of high school, taking you have to take all three sciences and all three maths. Like that's what they base your average on. So it's super hard to get into. And so I thought nothing of it. I just like planes and rockets and I happened to have the marks. And then it was like, showed up and it was the happiest accident of my life because it's really been super duper formative in my career.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one thing to be smart, and then it's another thing to actually be driven and gritty, and like having that curiosity continue to drive you way after school's over, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love learning, and I think I learn from everybody. Like I know I have some God-given smarts, but that doesn't mean anything. I learn from everybody I meet, and no matter what walk of life they're in, you learn life lessons from anybody. Doesn't matter what they do. And so I've always been very, very open-minded, and I've never been so arrogant that I think I know everything. I'm certainly opinionated, and I back up my opinions with what I know, but I'm not arrogant enough to think that I know it all. Not even close. So if you have that attitude, it's something I love doing. I love to learn all the time, and it makes life interesting. That you spend your whole life trying to get better at everything. And man, my parents really gave me grit. I mean, that's the Northern European thing, this hard work ethic and striving to be better and work hard. And so I got the work ethic from them. So the work ethic combined with the curiosity and the desire to learn and figure things out has really been the defining features that, define who I am and have really given me the tools to achieve what success I've had to date.
What has helped you kind of maintain that like work-life balance? Because it's really easy to get burned out. Like if you're just constantly working, working, working and not giving yourself breaks or times to recharge. And I'm kind of curious, like what helps energize you?
Yeah, I have other hobbies too that I pursue. I'm a musician. I took piano lessons as a kid, so I kind of now learned to play guitar. So I'm a metalhead. So,
Mm.
pull out my guitar every once in a while and jam. Like I have them there. You don't see them, or they're around my office. I have three guitars behind me and my piano
Oh,
opposite me.
nice.
So every once in a while, I'll take a break. And I live really close to the office, so I walk over on the Saturday afternoon and jam for 2, 3 hours. And so that's fun. And I'm a avid tennis player. I've played competitive tennis all my life, so kind of
Oh, wow.
sports is an outlet as well. And I've been ranked in Canada. Being a type AAA personality, I try to be the best at everything I do. It's my disease, my infliction. My family's used to that. So, I can't just play tennis for fun. I have to be, win Wimbledon someday. Still my idiotic dream that I will win Wimbledon someday.
Oh,
I
I
know,
love it.
but yeah. So I do that, and I really love what I do. I love every minute of this. The ups and downs are,
Mm.
the journey of. There's a lot of stuff about entrepreneurialism that they don't talk enough about, and I think everyone's focused on the exit, but it's the journey. It's the journey is so amazing, and I love that. So for me, work life integration, I call it. I mean, I fit life into my work, and work is my life, and it's just part
Mm.
of my life. So I'm fortunate to have found that passion and have enough ability to have been able to feed my family in the process.
That is so cool. At what point did you realize that you wanted to start your own company?
I think I worked at IBM. So I worked at this company called Loyalty Group that runs the Air Miles program in Canada, owned by Alliance Data Systems, a very successful coalition loyalty program. And I worked for them. And I learned when I was there, every place I ended up. I worked at the University of Toronto. I ended up running a $3 million budget. I went to this
Oh,
Air Miles
wow.
company, and I started a consulting practice inside the company. So I was kind of like an entrepreneur,
Mm.
and I learned, and I ran a P&L, and I learned all about corporate finance through my work experiences. And then I went to IBM. I was one of the first worldwide users of IBM's data mining technology in the 90s.
Wow.
That was the buzzword for AI back in the 90s. And so I've been playing with neural nets, and went to Jeffrey Hinton's lectures when he was at U of T in the 90s. He held some commercial industrial seminars on neural networks. And so I was really
Wow.
intrigued by all of that stuff in the 90s. And I was one of the first worldwide users of this IBM technology. It was a beta site, and they announced it, in the 90s worldwide, that Loyalty Consulting. And so I kind of did that. And that experience, I worked at IBM, ran like a $25 million business unit, and had, 200 consultants work for me. It was the data mining and
Sheesh.
data warehousing practice. And so all along that experience, I'd say I learned all the corporate finance stuff, which I think was the missing link, and how to
Mm.
manage a business and manage people. So I think at that point when I was at IBM, I said, how do I make $1 million a year being at IBM? And they said, well, you can't. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I should give this a go for myself. And then I kind of started a business. And I had a unique, at that point, I realized that statistical analysis doesn't really work. Having been super excited about it in the 90s, I think the whole world is having the moment today that I had in the 90s, where I thought statistical analysis, there's correlations everywhere, these neural nets, you can build models and solve all the world's problems. And then I realized, having tried it for 3 or 4 years, that it doesn't really move the needle in big
Mm.
systems and like optimizing a company. And so I went back to my aerospace roots, and then that was the foundation. I thought I could do this better than IBM. And then I founded Daisy, and the view was this autonomous machine intelligence. That was what I thought in 2003 when I founded Daisy. And VCs thought I was crazy talking about autonomous AI, no human in the loop, automating analysis and doing it without. And they thought, okay, this guy's crazy. So I thought, okay, I'll just do it myself. And I built a business and ran about 30 million in revenue through the company over 12 years, and used
Wow.
that to write 10 million lines of code, me and a few people. And here we are today with, raised some VC money, and we have a, autonomous machine intelligence that makes decisions without humans in the loop, based on what aerospace engineering has been doing since the 50s.
Wow. For those who, when you meet them and they ask you like, "Oh, tell us about Daisy Intelligence. What do you guys do?" How do you respond to that?
Well, I'd say we are autonomous machine intelligence that makes operational business decisions. That's a mouthful. And so it makes decisions on business problems that are beyond human ability. So highly complex, quantitative, mathematical processes that occur in millions, huge volumes, and things that computers are good at, computing and repetition. And so we solve those types of business problems and make autonomous decisions, and let people do what people do well, and let machines do what machines do well. So we look for really complex business processes which exist in every industry. And by delivering the decision, the clients will execute those decisions and will grow net income. So our goal is net income. We sell net income growth using this smart decision making, is really the simplest way. And I always tell my customers, for every dollar you pay us, you're going to make at least $10, net margin $10. So take all the cost off of that. $10 net margin ROI of
Mm.
10 at least. And if you're a big company, you'll pay for our annual contract in one day. That's what it should deliver. And so we're super results focused.
That's cool. Well, I just love, I mean, just hearing the way you talk and how driven you are, how gritty you are, curious, and how confident you are in being able to help companies. I'm sure that gives them a lot of assurance. Um, from going to your website, your website focuses on how you're helping retailers and insurance companies with AI. Can you share any favorite case studies on companies that have come to you and how you've helped turn them around with your AI solutions?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we see the same metrics and results at every company. The challenge is, if the company uses our technology, it works. And we've been able to, just by in retail, we help customers decide what's the optimal combination of products to promote every week. What's the
Mm.
optimal combination of prices? The keywords being combination, because that's the secret. And then what's the inventory to allocate? And those are kind of core decisions. When customers make the decision, that's when we grow sales. And so for every client, we've been able to go in from companies that are 100 million in revenue to companies that are 30 billion in revenue and grow their sales year over year, same store sales, which is kind of the control cell. That's the same store as last year. And this year we did better than last year by 3 to 5%. And, we've Walmart Canada is our biggest customer. We've been able to see those results there. We've been working with
Mm.
them for 8 years. They've been an amazing company to work with. And then we have a small customer in Bosnia who's super bought in and very,
Mm.
very forward thinking, and trying to be the best retailer in Bosnia in that region of the world. And we've been able to achieve the same kind of 3 to 5% results with them. And so I find every customer as great, customers who really believe in what we do and give us the opportunity to apply our technology. So, from the Walmarts of the world to the Bosnian grocer Tropic, those are the kind of customers we love. Customers who are trying to push the needle and have a clear mission, and certainly those are the kind of clients that are my favorites.
What are some of the, as you have been, as you mentioned, like working with data analytics and AI for such a long time, as you look out at the future of how AI will be able to help companies, what are some of the things that kind of excite you?
Yeah, I think the ultimate mission, as I said, our mission statement at Daisy reads, our goal is to empower people to be their best at work by letting autonomous machine intelligence do what machines do best. So
Mm.
divide the world in two, and our goal is really to maximize efficiency with maximum employment. We don't want to unemploy humanity. So the idea is to have a balance between man and machine. And that's why we focus on problems that are beyond human ability, because it's not about replacing people, it's about augmenting people. I
Mm.
think, and I'm not against what other companies are doing. I have no statement to make. Everyone can choose their own path. But like the idea of having a customer service robot, I think the best human customer service will always be better than the best robotic customer service person. So let's not solve that problem. Let's do something
Mm.
people can't do. And so I see that's where, and there's lots of grand problems in the world that are beyond human ability, that are highly computational. And so for us, although our mission statement is to empower people, the ultimate goal, which I really believe in, is to minimize poverty. Because if smart companies, when we create financial efficiency, and in grocery, we've been able to double the net margin of a company. So grocery industry is like 1% net margin. We can double or triple the net margin of a company. But those companies don't bank that money. They invest it back in price and innovation, because smart companies know to compete, you have to keep driving price down, and price is what drives market share. And so if we lower the price at one of our retail clients, that means consumers get lower prices. That means their cost of living goes down. And if we do that in
Mm.
insurance by eliminating fraud and more accurately pricing, then insurance companies can lower the cost of insurance. If we do that in banking and healthcare and telecommunications, everywhere across the board, then we will lower the cost of living for humanity, which has a poverty effect. And that's really why I started the company. I don't have control of what my clients do with the profitability gains, but I know that all the smart companies we work with do exactly what I say. So we say we empower people and deliver financial efficiency, but the ultimate game is to really reduce poverty. I love people. I love humanity. That's why I do this.
I love that. When did that become a goal for you, like reducing poverty?
When I was very young, I mean, I thought when I was very young, I remember, reading science books, and I thought, like, look, these people's names are on these equations. People have been gone for hundreds of years. And I go, I don't want the fame, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool to have an impact on the world? And I felt the desire to do that. And then, I read a lot about economics over the years, and I saw that, and I see, people on the street, and I felt this empathy towards people. And I thought, I would really like to do something that had an impact on the world. And I, realized along the way I had these mad skills that I could apply. And my goal is to build the biggest AI company in the world, be this generation's tech giant, be $100 billion revenue company. And if I did that, it's not for the financial trappings. It would be that meant I would have changed the world, and this company and all the people here would have changed the world. And that's really the mission, and that's why it's my lifelong mission to do that. I hope that it's not an easy road, but it's like, why not us? Well, you just got to believe and try, and I think that's the mission.
What has helped you? I mean, you talked about obviously your academic background, strong in sciences and math, and then all of the business experience you had with consulting, working with IBM back in the day, heading up huge business units. So you have the business side, the math side, the sciences, all with which helped contribute to your success, and also just your drive, your curiosity. And wanting to be the best and helping your customers be the best in what they do. Part of leading a good business and also to be a big business is being a good leader. And I'm kind of curious about how you have worked on becoming a great leader.
Yeah, that's a real work in progress. I think I'm good at telling the story of what we do and getting people to buy into the mission. And I've always tried to be 100% honest and transparent in all my dealings. I never want to step on another human being's back to get ahead. And I think my ethic in that regard, people see that. When I look in the mirror, I see an honest person, and when I look at other people, I see the same thing. I see the best in people, and I think a lot of the people around me connect to that mission. They connect to the mission statement and the transparency, and I'm able to articulate the story very well. So I think that's been what attracts people to me. And then I think really focusing on how to get the best out of people, and I think being supportive, and I do coaching. I've been doing executive coaching for a few years now, and really focusing on that as the company grows, because I think that's super important. And I think that's where I have the most learning to do on being a better and better leader. And I think I'm great at establishing this kind of initial connection with people, and just working on how to grow the company and make people around feel supported. I take such a pride and such a responsibility in employing. We have 65 employees today. I take that as a most serious responsibility, and I think people feel that, and I think that's a big connection. And continue to improve. Never assume you know everything. That's the key thing, right?
I love your attitude and just your growth mindset, and also just your humility in all of this. What advice would you give for those people listening in who have this drive to also create their own company? What advice would you give these young men and women who might be doing their own startup for the very first time, for the things you've learned, maybe things you wish you learned earlier in your career?
I think that don't focus on the exit. Everyone focuses on the exit and they talk about that. It's not about that. It's a lifelong journey. And I say, so if there's an exit, that's the anticlimax to a life's work, right? Because I've fed my family for years. I've employed people. The journey is the reward, the experience that you have. So I think focus on that. Focus on and have a mission, right? And companies before the 70s were more successful in a rate of return because they were more mission focused. Since the 1970s, they've been more finance focused, and the average rate of return of companies has been lower since the 70s. And I think a study at Rotman School of Business from U of T, so I forget the professor's name, talked about that, how it's, so be on a mission, view it as a lifelong journey, and it's not the exit that matters. And I think also don't be in a headlong rush. I see young people in such a rush to start companies because it's the coolest thing to be a startup, and universities have incubators and all these things. I'd say that learn from the world. Don't be in a rush. Get a job. Learn how companies work and what's it like. What's a culture like? What's finance about if you're a tech person, or if you're a business person? What's tech about? And experience the world, and don't be in a rush. I see everyone's in a gigantic rush. The idea that you could be the next billion-dollar business in a year or two. That's so rare. The more likely story is it takes, I think the average time for a software company to get to $1 billion in revenue is something like 20 years, right? Nobody ever talks about that. That's the reality, right? And so and so that's where you got to have this long view and a journey view. And I think when I was younger, I used to I thought it was about money, and I've learned along the way that I don't care about any of that stuff. I mean, as long as you can feed your family and have a little bit of security, for sure, but it's about the mission. That's really the thing. I'd say persevere, and if you believe you have a vision, stick to it. You have strong skin. Takes thick skin to do this entrepreneurial thing, and always double check your vision. Don't believe smoke your own drapes too much. You got to persevere, but stay abreast and always ask, am I really right? Do I really believe in this? And I've kind of morphed how the vision has been implemented over the years, but I believe that I was on the right path. The mission was, if you have good information, common sense says you'll make better decisions. I mean, that's pretty much this, and that I felt that was right. And then how we've executed that has changed over the time. But I think those are the kind of advice I'd give young people.
As you have been, focused on your mission, I'm curious about some of the difficulties that have come along, and how you have overcome those difficulties or are currently overcoming them.
Yeah, I mean, the difficulty is always running a business is about cash flow, and that's certainly tough. Learning how to manage that. That's where the thick skin comes in. How to you're always the last guy paid. Making sure that you take care of your employees. So cash flow management is very tough. So you have to really be, as a business, although we have this lofty mission, it's really about being financially focused, because you have to succeed in your mission, you have to have a viable financial business. And so you have to learn to really focus on the financial goals. And it's not about revenue and profit. It's about cash management. Is one thing I learned. Like when I was at IBM and then the loyalty group before that, it wasn't my money. So it was all about P&L and revenue. But when it's your own business, it's about cash management. So cash is king. You have to learn how to create cash and manage cash. And I think that's been the tough highs and lows have been that learning to overcome that, and learning that losing your biggest client and being able to gut through that and figure out how to solve the problem. And I think that's been constantly never take for granted anything. Like I'm the most paranoid guy that I will never, no matter how successful we'll be, I'm paranoid about making sure that every one of my customers is happy and the employees are doing well, and you can never rest on your laurels. So I think those are the things I've learned, and the highs and lows. I've won a massive deal and lost my biggest customer in the same day. It's like schizophrenia. It's so it's manic, and you have to learn to deal with that and be level. Your employees want you to be level all the time. You can't get too excited or too depressed. And so there's been a lot of tough times. I've done this for 15 years, and I've fortunately had family and friends who've stepped up and lent the business money when we needed it to survive. And I've had great banking and finance partners who stepped in. And so ask for help. Ask for help from everybody you can. Network, meet people, and you'd be amazing. I've had people who've just come and gone for 6 months into the business, into this sphere, and they've helped me in that 6 months, and like we're willing to help. It's been amazing. I wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this without dozens of people who've really stepped up when times were tough. And there's been a lot of heartache, a few soul-searching moments where I go, am I crazy? Like doing this AI thing should maybe be easier to sell nails and galvanized screws. I dream about it. I go, how many pounds do you want? Do you want a 1-inch spiral nails or 2-inch? And you want galvanized, not galvanized? It's $1 a pound or 99 cents for 10 pounds. I thought that would be so much easier. I'm sure it's way more complicated than that, but so you gotta, that's that kind of soul searching. And it's been a lot of tough moments, but you persevere through it, you find a way through it. And I've been lucky to have all that support that has gotten me to where I am today. And there's still challenges today. Business is not easy.
I love that you have this network, people that you can go to, you can ask questions, and I'm kind of curious about your networking approach and how you kind of nurture those relationships.
Yeah, I think my inclination being a technical person is to be was, introverted is my preferred state of being, but I've learned you have to be extroverted and get to meet people. And at times I didn't network when we were building the tech, working with a few companies at a time. We were very introverted building the tech and we were working with customers. So I always believed in this: work with a customer to build your technology, because then at least has some practical application. But then at some points I've said, okay, I got to just get out and meet everybody. So I would just go to every networking event, join peer groups, go to conferences, and really force myself out of my skin to see somebody else standing alone and walk up to them and say, "Hey, I'm Gary. What's your name? What do you do?" Like, and when I started networking, amazing things started happening. Like, meet everybody. You don't, that's the amount of people, the skills, the knowledge, the wisdom in older people, younger people of all colors, creeds, everything, and I just was of mind to let's meet everybody. And I did that at several times. Now, given my time is more limited, but I still try to do that as much as possible. And when you do that, you make amazing connections. And that's really when I started networking again really hard in 2015. That started me on this VC path, and found some investors and people who helped the company really get to where it is today. So, yeah. And I would say in hindsight, I should have networked a lot earlier. There's years where I was very introverted and didn't network. But I think network. Especially as a senior leader in a business, you need to do that all the time, because that's you can't do it alone.
And that's actually very, very hard, especially for those of us who are introverted. Like, you go to those events and you're like, I just want to get out of here. How did you kind of conquer? How did you kind of overcome that fear of like reaching out to new people?
Yeah, I just learned over time. I worked with, when I was at IBM, I had a few colleagues that were salespeople, and I worked with a lot of the sales guys at IBM. I was a subject matter expert. They would bring in a sales calls, and I met some really great people who were just amazing. I would be at conferences and watch them. There's this one friend, Doug Plaxton. I don't know if you watch this, but he was just brilliant at just disarming people, just walking up to total strangers and say, "Hey, come on over to my booth," and the person would just have an amazing time in watching that. So I just tried to say, "Hey, you just got to step out of your skin," and it's energy draining as an introverted person. That kind of drains your energy, but then you got to recharge your energy. So I'd rush home and watch a NASA documentary, or kind of recharge the batteries, or read a physics textbook for an hour to build the energy up again. And kind of learned to do that, and I do that now. I feel much more comfortable when I stand at conference booths. Occasionally, I'll just grab people as soon as you make eye contact and say, "Hey, what's your name? Come on over here. Let me tell you about Daisy." And most people are pretty friendly and will want to do that. I'd say 90% of the time they'll give you a minute or two to talk to them, and you have to force yourself to do that. And I forced myself, and I've become much better at it, and now way more comfortable doing that as I've aged. I have zero embarrassment factor left. Right? So.
well, also I think the fact that you're just naturally a curious person, and you're like, oh, I can learn from everybody. Like, your attitude definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like, working with your customers, you really realize how your vision sometimes is way off the mark. Sitting down with a customer using your product, you're going, "Oh my God, I need to make this so much better." And you have to have that attitude that you don't know anything. You got to learn from all those experiences. And the most valuable time I spend is sitting with my customers, watching them try to use my product. Then I always like smack myself in the head. My employees go, "Oh my God, Gary's going to a customer again. He's going to come back with like a list of 7 million things for us to do." Right. So, but I do that. And that's how you learn if you're hitting the mark or not. And that you got to really, really be open to listen to other people, because your perception of the world is so different than other people's. And it's a hard thing to realize that you don't know it all, and your view is not the only view.
As you've been, working in the AI space and helping businesses develop solutions, I'm kind of curious about that journey and the types of questions that you're getting now that you didn't get before.
Well, I think people ask, what is AI? And so I think we have a very different viewpoint. For me, I think the vast majority of what people call AI today is just statistical analysis, right? So that means the statistics, the learning is really the concept of learning. I don't like the term artificial intelligence. I don't like that at all. I think it's all math and science. It's all explicitly programmed. The learning is learning mathematical patterns. And so if you call that learning, I guess that's learning. But linear regression, as was invented in 1805, was the start of statistics. And if that was the panacea, it would have run its course. Deep learning is just really sophisticated linear regression. It means you have to have historical examples. With a C hunt for big data is about getting an example so you can model off an example. That means you can't learn anything new unless you go create new data. And to go create new data, you have to do something new in the marketplace and collect the data. So the learning happens only at the pace of time, which is not interesting. And you have to have done it before to get value out of it. With a predictive analytics and statistical analysis, there's no decision-making framework wrapped up into statistics. So how you make a decision on the math is two disconnected tasks. So those are the downsides, and that's the statistics really doesn't move the needle. It's not a holistic view of the business. You can't model a company with statistics only. So what I do is the engineering approach. So if you just think of a self-driving car, that's a race car on a track. You wouldn't put a real car with an empty brain on the racetrack and say, learn how to drive. You can't drive with a statistical model. You can't build a linear regression on how to get around the track. So what would you do? You train it in a simulator. And because then that means you have a simulation of the way the world works. In the case of a race car, it's the laws of physics. And you have historical data, but the historical data configures the simulation. It gives you the density of air, the gravity, the friction of the tires on the road, and that configures your simulation. Because you can simulate, you can do 100 million hours of driving in 1 hour if you have enough computing power. And you have no data, so everything you do, you've never done before, so you're learning faster than the pace of time. The car is an autonomous system, so you're modeling the whole system. The goal is to make the decision what steering, brake, and gas pedal what sequence of those inputs create the fastest lap time. The reward is delayed from each individual's moment because you got to slow down for the corners to get the fastest lap time, in contrast to statistics where you want to get the minimum error on every record. You can't trade off doing bad on some records to do better on others. So this is called reinforcement learning, is what the computer scientists call it, and they kind of invented that in 1995. But engineers have been doing this since 1950s. Neil Armstrong did not land the lunar module on the moon. It was landed by a computer. He told the computer what to do, and the computer executed it. So the self-driving car, that example, a year of business is like a lap around a racetrack. And so in retail, the inputs are what are the weekly products, prices, and inventory allocation. Those are the inputs that drive a retailer. In insurance, it's what's the weekly underwriting. So what's the weekly prices? What claims should I auto adjudicate? What fraud should I auto deny? So it's the revenue and cost side. How do I optimize an insurance? So that's the technology that's been around since the 50s, figuring out. So it's like autonomous machine intelligence. It makes the decisions. It decides what to do, learns faster than the pace of time. I view that, and all that is control theory. Engineers call that optimal control. And in the 1950s, that's what AI was, optimal control. Then somehow it got derailed by this computer science view. If Einstein waited for big data, there'd still be waiting, right? And we create differential equations like the laws of physics that govern business. You can't even you can't do reinforcement learning to learn how to optimize a company with standard techniques. You need to come up with sets of differential equations that you can use to simulate. And those are the technical differences about what we do, which is reinforcement learning with partial differential equations. That's what we do. And that's what aerospace has been doing for 50 years. And so I've just kind of begged, borrowed, and stole from the aerospace industry once I realized this statistics thing doesn't work, and applied to business. And we've invented differential equations that govern business. And that's a very different approach. And most people, don't have a clue what I'm talking about. But, it's optimal control. Engineers get it when I talk about it. It's just control theory. You have an input, a dynamics, an output, and a feedback loop. So if I do this, what will happen? That's how all of human decision making covers every human decision is that, from eating to when to sleep. I know if I eat, I won't be hungry. And the dynamics is how the human body works. Or a race car, if I turn the steering wheel left, what's going to happen to my car? There's system dynamics. And so that's what I believe AI is. And then there's a lot of control theory stuff that nobody talks about, which is how to be stable. You don't see autonomous cars wildly weaving in a lane until they slowly approach a straight line. They do it smoothly from one direction. That's called stability and control. I can't have my clients make 100 million one week, lose 100 million the next. And so there's decision making has to be stable and controllable. Nobody talks about that with AI. I mean, that's a huge element. AI is a system thinking, fault tolerant. If we're going to run your business and make decisions for you, can't make mistakes. How is this fault tolerant? Fault tolerance, stability, and control. This is what aerospace does. There's three computers that back each other up on the space shuttle. When the Mars lander's landing on the Mars, there's no human with a joystick. Two computers say, pull the chute now. One says, no, not yet. They have to figure that out in a matter of milliseconds or seconds what to do. That's the fault tolerance stuff. And these are the topics that nobody's really talking about, which I think should be only what they're talking about, which is so look back at the stability and control theory. That's what AI really is. It's not statistics. Even if you knew the location of every molecule in the universe, you couldn't learn Einstein's theory of relativity. And that's a fact. It's a problem of academic interest, but it's so far from reality that's not possible. And the world seems to think that you can learn anything from data. Not true. And I have that discussion with anybody, except for the simplest toy problems.
I'm curious about, as you think about the future and the data you can get, I'm curious about how you envision, like, as we're able to collect more data from consumers, especially in the retail space, the type of data that would be helpful to inform businesses to be more profitable.
I think it goes back to this, you don't need a lot of data, you need the right data, right? So, the assumption of statistics is that given this data set that I accidentally have in front of me, that I could solve all the world's problems with that. That's the wrong mindset. The mindset should be, how does this system work? Okay, what do I think the factors that apply? Then go get the data about those factors. And if I don't have that easily at hand, I build an experimental system to collect the data. So I think more data is not the answer. It's the right data. So if you're optimizing a process, you get data about the process. And in retail, it's transactions. If you want to grow your business, you want more transactions and bigger transactions. So transaction data is the primary data source for that. It's not big data. It's not social media data. It's transactions first, then it's customer data second. And in retail, the fundamental truths are customers don't buy products, right? Customers buy solutions. Right. So if you're making a spaghetti dinner and you see ground beef for sale, people don't buy raw ground beef and eat that. They'll buy five other items to complete the pasta dinner. And so you got to sell products with large use cases. And a case of water, you don't need another product to consume a case of water. So that's a fundamental truth. Products drive a solution, and so customers buy solutions. But then they have displacement because you bought ground beef to make hamburgers, hot dogs. You didn't buy a hot dog, so hot dog sales go down. Because it was on sale, I bought a 3-week supply, so I stole money from the future. When I discount, people buy more. If I put it on the front page of the flyer or a TV ad, people buy more. People buy different things at Christmas than they do in the summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere, So those are the fundamental truths. And so I think you need to think about the fundamental truths, then collect the right data, not just any data. I think the big data mentality was created by the hardware industry, to sell hardware, because hardware sales should follow Moore's law, right? So they said, they come out of the concept of big data and go, skated past that one. If we can convince everybody to collect the location of every molecule and all the stuff, what I had for breakfast, I can sell more hardware, and I convince companies.
That is so true. That is so true.
And it's the scientific method turned inside out. Scientists don't go, let's get the data and then figure out the world. They sit down and go, how does this system work? They base it on everything I know to date. Based on that, how do I improve the current knowledge? And then based on that, what drives the system? What's my theory? They come up with a theory first, a causal theory, and then they go, okay, now how do I test this? Where do I get data to test it? And that's the scientific method. That method has been used to build literally everything in our lives. Literally everything. Nothing in our lives was built with a statistical model. Not one thing. Not one thing. Like, so how we have gone this crazy bent that statistics is the panacea when not a single thing in our lives was built with a statistical model. It was built with the scientific method, which has been tried and true for hundreds of years since the 1700s is when this method started. And we now just think big data is a solution to everything. It's absolutely not. And I love to have this argument with anybody. It's absolutely not. And I think everyone's having that moment that there's correlations everywhere, but correlation is not causality. And we need to really take a step back and from that. And I think, I think that's a big problem. The world is wasting billions and trillions of dollars going in a direction that's going to be a dead end.
Gary, thank you so much for being on Data Talk. For those who would love to chat with you, maybe they're encountering some business problems, and obviously they heard you and like, wow, Gary is a wealth of knowledge. I love the way he's thinking. I would love to get his thoughts. What are some ways they can contact you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, so I'm Gary Saarenvirta. My last name is uniquely spelled, so you're going to find me very easily. S-A-A. Look for S-A-A-R-E-N-V-I-R-T-A, Saarenvirta. You'll find me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me there. Just say you heard me on this talk, and I'll love to connect with you. I don't connect with anybody. If you kind of preface it with how you heard of me, I listened to this podcast. It was great with Mike Delgado. I really was intrigued by what you were saying. I'm saying, okay, great. It's a good reason to connect. And my email address is on my LinkedIn profile too. You can email me. You can go to our company website, DaisyIntelligence.com, and connect via there. I'm always happy to network. If you have something interesting to say and you were intrigued by what we talked about, I would love to chat.
Awesome. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on Data Talk.
Hey, thanks a lot. I really enjoyed myself.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Data Talk podcast. We share out new episodes every single week, and you can find a full catalog of previous shows, including YouTube videos, on our Experian news blog. The URL is just experian.com/datatalk. And as always, we always look forward to hearing from our community. So if you have suggestions for topics or guests you'd like to hear from, please let me know. You can always reach out to us on Twitter at Experian Data Lab, or you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. You can search for Michael Delgado, or you can email me at michael.delgado@experian.com. Hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and we'll chat next week.